Welcome to the Ambient iPad. In this video, I'm going to do bass sound on sound looping with an 8-second delay from the Empress Echosystem. The signal chain is a Rob Allen Deep 4 fretless bass. That's going into a Dunlop volume pedal that I've got on the floor. Then that goes into a Boss SY200 synthesizer pedal. That goes into a Boss GT1000 Core multi-effects. And then I've got the Empress Echosystem going in stereo to send and receives of the GT1000 Core. And then the master output in stereo comes from the Boss GT1000 Core. That goes into a Universal Audio Volt 276 interface. I've also got a microphone that's going through a Focusrite Scarlett 18i8 interface that I'm using as a mixer to get the microphone signal into the camera. So that's the longest signal chain I've ever had. It's just hardware today. The iPad, I'm in GarageBand. That's strictly for recording the bass sounds. Not really using any effects at all, a little compression. And I am using Klevgrand's, what's it called? Grand Finale, that's right, mastering app. I can't show that because, as I've mentioned a million times before, once you hit record on GarageBand, everything freezes and you can't manipulate anything. So a lot of hardware today, some pedals, but really the focus is the Empress Echosystem. Goes up to an 8-second delay. Not the easiest way to get to that delay. There's a ratio knob, which can also be a delay time knob, but that knob only goes up to about 1.2 seconds. So you have to get the ratio all the way up and you have to tap and kind of hit it. I don't think I'm at 8 seconds, but I'm very close, and I'll just stick with that. I love this delay pedal. Even just as a delay pedal, it's very organic, a lot of capabilities in it. The long delay is through a mode called Ambient, and while it says it's a digital pristine delay, it's definitely not, because I have the feedback set up to 100%, but you'll still hear it decay over time when I do the jam. So I'm using the synthesizer pedal. I did a demo of kind of the hold function, which maybe I'll turn on at some point in this jam, but I'll link up there to the video for this. But let me just quickly go through some of the sounds that I'm going to use. On the GT1000 Core multi-effects, I'm really using that as for reverb, for chorus, for some modulation, and overdrive for bass solos. I'll do a separate video on this for ambient music because it's really, really powerful, and you have a lot of customization over the effects chain. You can move the different effects in and out, different blocks, turn them on and off. And I'm using the Empress into the send and receive, and I've placed that very close to the end of the chain, right before some chorus and right before some reverb. So we'll get reverb on the loop, and the chorus will just give it a little more movement, some more stereo effect, although the loop will be in stereo. All right, so let me just demonstrate some of the sounds I'm going to use. Here's the clean bass sound with the reverb. From the GT1000, so I'm sorry that isn't clean. Let me turn the reverb off. Okay. EQ'd a little brighter than I normally would do. Little buzzing overdrive in there, but that's the fretless. So here's some bell sounds I'm going to use. And I'm not hearing them. Quite sure why. I know why. And this is very important with the hold. You do get a mix knob separate knob for the dry bass sound and a separate knob for the affected sound. Let's turn the dry sound down and the affected sound up. You can hear a lot of different artifacts. But the tracking is really good. So any other shortcomings in this pedal are completely erased by the tracking. So these aren't bell sounds, these are the organ sounds. Here's the bell sounds. That sounds distorted. Do we have distortion on here? No, we don't. You won't hear any of that weird sound. That's what the volume pedal's for, so demonstrate. And then without the volume pedal. All right, and then I'll use this one bass sound that I really like. Nice synth bass sound. Those are the sounds that I'm going to use. I'll be using the regular bass sound with some overdrive and some modulation on the GT1000 Core for some soloing over that. I think what I'm going to do is just set up a kind of basic loop with the sounds that I've just gone through, the bell, the organ, maybe that bass sound, maybe something else. And then I'll move into some looping without using the synth pedal, and I'll just probably use some overdrive, and the volume pedal will play a big part there, and maybe at the end I'll bring in the hold function on the SY200 synth pedal, but let's see. All right, so let me move the microphone out of the way, and let's try to see what kind of jam we can come up with. All right, let me keep that going in the background there. So, first off, apologies for the occasional dodgy intonation. Usually when there's just a few notes going with the fretless, I can kind of feel my way, but in the loop there were a couple of notes that were off and then soloing over it. So, again, or think of it as some pitch vibrato, but definitely a little interesting intonation. So you can hear essentially what you can do with just, it could be a bass, it could be a guitar, it could really be any instrument. But the focus really was on using a long delay to loop rather than a looper itself. Now, I haven't changed the mix or the volume settings on the delay, and even though this is supposed to be a type of digital delay for the 8 seconds, you can hear it's really faded in the background. So if you're looking for, it's not going to fully replace the looper, but it's just more organic. I could turn the feedback down, and I've done that before in some other videos where the parts fade out more, quicker, and then you can just continually add things over that. There's really not a lot of delays out there. Now, this is a stereo delay, a hardware delay that has that much delay time. People think of long delays as more than a second. I don't. I think of it as more 5 or 6 seconds, 5 or 6 seconds being Frippertronics territory, and then anything beyond that just being these loops, again, which you can kind of still hear in the background. This kind of setup, I've been trying to work this stuff out for years because bass has always been my main instrument, and the ability to create loops and do this kind of thing with bass has always been kind of challenging just by the limitations of the sound. Now, the SY200, the Boss synth pedal, obviously adds a lot of different capabilities around that, but also distortion and just effects in the GT1000 can help there too. For other options out there to do sound on sound, there are pedals that have that as a capability. Strymon, the El Capistan, does that. It degrades really, really quickly. Within minutes, full volume loop will get really, really crunchy, and if that's what you're looking for, that's a great delay. A lot of people like the Strymon Volante. I think it's got some great capabilities, but it completely falls down in one area, which is when you're playing your original notes into the sound on sound, it's in stereo, but the second the sound on sound loops starts, everything's collapsed to mono, and so you end up with a mono loop. And if you don't use a stereo setup, that doesn't really matter, but that's a no-go for me. And as far as hardware delays that have longer settings, there's the Boss GT1000. Getting a little long on the tooth, but it's great sound, great capabilities. The big difference between that and this Empress is that you can set the delay time for the Boss GT1000. The max is, I think, 10 seconds to a variety of the different categories, whether it's a digital delay or a tape delay. On the Empress, you get the 8-second delay and a very long delay under the ambient category. And then, as you can hear, still kind of fading and degrading in the background. Not a lot of degradation because the tone I just have boosted a little, but you can really hear that volume going down. All right, I've been droning on for a few minutes at the end here, but I did want to kind of explain a bunch of different things. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.